Welcome to Relative and Joint Frequency. So for our now, we have in a company, certain employees have access to a fax machine and scanners. Suppose that an employee will be selected at random. Find the probability that an employee will have access to the following. So you are given a Venn diagram, which means your very first step should be to find the total, right? So the total is going to be found by adding up all of the numbers in there. 43 plus 38 plus 16 plus the 11 on the outside that don't use either, and that's going to give you a total of 108. So the number of people who use a scanner in the scanner bubble is going to be 38 plus 16, which is going to give you a total of 54 people. So that means your probability is 54 people who use the scanner out of the total of 108. Now going on to not a scanner. So not a scanner represents everything outside of the circle. And outside of the circle is going to be the 43 and the 11. That's going to give us 54 people. So still, your probability is 54 over 108. So you can see that the probability of A and B happening are equally likely because they have the same exact probability, so they have an equal chance. For the next one, a scanner and a fax machine, keep in mind that, remember, your symbol for and is the upside down U. It represents the intersection or the overlap. That's 38 out of 108 people. And then the last one, the scanner or the fax machine, that symbol for or is the U symbol, and that represents the union. So we're going to take both circles together and all the numbers inside of it. So the 43 plus the 38 plus the 16, that's going to give me 97. So the probability is 97 out of 108 people. So the last video had a lot to do with Venn diagrams. This video, we're going to be working on tables. So we just have some vocabulary to go over before. Categorical data is when your data is divided up into categories, such as the number of girls or the number of guys. Now, a two-way table displays categorical data with a row variable and a column variable. So your rows go left to right, and columns, like columns on a front porch, go up and down. So basically a two-way table combines two different types of categories together. Not only boys and girls, but do boys and girls prefer chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream, or strawberry ice cream? Marginal frequencies are going to be located on the margins around the ends of the tables, and joint frequencies are going to be on the inside of the tables. I'll get back to that in a brief minute. So relative frequency actually relates the amount of times in relation to the total number of observations. So again, a lot easier to see on a table, but your relative frequency is going to basically give us our probability. So in this example, we have a two-way table. Our row categories, left and right, are male and female. Our column categories are going to be the sports. So your marginal data is along the margins. That's going to be your side values. So that's the margin, and they represent the total columns. And then over here, you have the other marginal frequencies because you have total values on the bottom as well. Now, your joint frequencies are in the middle. So everyone in here is a joint frequency because you're combining male and female with all the different types of sports. So, for example, the data in cell A. So this guy right here is a joint frequency because it's on the inside and it's joining males and football. So this one is going to be the males who prefer football. Now we have the describe the data that would be in cell N. So in cell N, which is over here, it's on the outskirts of the two-way table, so it is a marginal frequency, and it's going to represent the total. So this total has to deal with the number of people who like basketball. And notice how that combines the number of males and the number of females. If you're talking about I, actually that's an L, so L is over here. That's another marginal frequency on the outskirts. This one is talking about females. So this is the total females surveyed. Or the total number of females who like at least one sport. And then the last one wants to know what would be in cell R. So in cell R, at the very end, this one is special because this represents the overall total of everyone. So this one represents the total number of people overall. And you're always going to find the overall total in the bottom right-hand column. So sometimes they're not going to give you the complete table and you're going to have to fill in data. In this particular case, we have a random sample of 100 surveys were collected, which asked males and females to choose which superpower that they wish they had. And this person didn't get all of the results for whatever reason. Anyway, because they're saying that there are 100 surveys, notice how your overall total in the bottom right-hand corner is 100. In order to go and fill out the missing pieces, you can either work from left to right or you can work top to bottom. If you look right here, top to bottom, C plus 10 has to give you the total, the marginal frequency of 25. So think about it. What plus 10 gives you 25? That's going to be 15. You could do that again over here. 5 plus what gives you your marginal frequency of 9. So it's pretty easy to figure out that J has to be 4. For the last one, E and Q, you can't go top to bottom because, I mean, what plus 3 equals what? There's 2 unknowns, so that's not going to work. Instead, you can go left to right, because everything in this row should total to 55. So if we go left to right for the top row, you have 12 plus 15 plus the 15 we found plus 5 plus E has to give you the total of 55. And if you solve for that, you'll get that E has to be 8. I'm going to put it in blue. Anyway, if you want to find the other one, you can go across as well. But now that I've figured out that this was 8, 8 plus 3 gives me my total of 11. Now that you actually filled out the entire table, you can go about answering the probability questions. When they're asking for a probability, they're really talking about they want the fraction that represents it. Now, you can write probability as percentages or decimals, but again, in this course, we're mostly going to keep our probabilities as fractions. So they want to know the probability that a randomly selected survey would prefer invisibility as his or her superpower. So we're talking about invisibility. Everyone who prefers invisibility is 25 people out of the 100. Going on to the next one, what's the probability that a randomly selected survey was a female? Females are on the left, which means your total column is going to be on the right. That's 55 females out of 100. Keep on going. What's the probability that a randomly selected student was a male and chose freeze time? Now remember that and represents the intersection or the overlap. So I'm going to go to men and freeze time. Here are all my males. Here are all my freeze times. Their overlap is right here at 16. So that's going to be 16 out of 100, where they both join up for that joint frequency. Now, if you remember from the last video, we have the union formula. The probability of A or B is the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A and B. So for the next one, E, they're asking you for female or super strength. So we're going to go up to the top and we're going to look at female. And then you're also going to look at super strength. Now, the probability of being female is 55. So I'm going to put 55 over 100. And I'm going to add it to the probability of super strength, which is 9 out of 100. And then I have to subtract the overlap. So if you notice, as you go from left to right, you count the 5 once. And as you go up and down, you're counting the 5 again. Because you're counting the 5 twice, that's throwing off your probability. And that's why we need to subtract the intersection, the 5, one time to account for counting it twice. So we're going to subtract 5 out of 100 because that's the probability that they're female and like super strength. You're going to put that in your calculator and it's going to give you 59 out of 100. Let's try the next one. What's the probability that a randomly selected student was male or chose invisibility? So first you need to find the probability that they are a male, then find the probability that they like invisibility, and then find the probability and subtract them liking invisibility and being a male at the same time. So now we're looking at the number of males and invisibility. Our totals are switching to 45 and 25, and you're going to subtract the overlap. So the probability that they are male is 45 out of 100. The probability that they like invisibility is 25 out of 100. The probability that they are male and prefer invisibility is 10 out of 100, the intersection. And when you complete the problem, you're going to end up with 60 out of 100. So let's try some more. In this example, we have freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, and we're talking about their favorite colors of red, blue, or green. So they want to know the probability of selecting a sophomore. There are 166 sophomores out of 508. Now, this is the probability of selecting a student who chose green. There are 147 students that chose green. So 147 divided by 508. Remember that the probability of freshmen and someone who chose red, we're talking about the intersection of both columns and the row. So freshmen and red, they intersect right there at 45 over 508. And then the last one, the OR probability. So you need to add up each total and subtract the overlap. We have, let's see, juniors, and we have blue. Total number of juniors is 174 over 508. Total number of blue is 218 over 508. Their overlap is 80 over 508, which means you're going to get 312 people out of the 508. Okay, last example. Take a look at this one and tell me if you can figure out what's missing. If you notice, this one is missing the total columns. It's missing the marginal frequencies. So what you're going to have to do on your own is 20 plus 40 plus 32 equals what total? 45 plus 55 plus 50 equals what total? Then you're going to do the last one for rabbits, and then you're going to do the ones going vertically. 20 plus 45 plus 6 is what total? 40 plus 55 plus 15 is what total? When you figure everything out, you end up with the full table. So please make sure to see if they're actually giving you those full values when you do these problems. Now, you also want to make sure to get your overall total, you add up all of the marginal frequencies, right? If you add up all the mini totals, you get your overall total. And then this problem becomes just like before. The probability that they rescued a dog is going to be 92 out of 270. The probability that we're talking about shelter 3 is 89 over 270. The probability of a rabbit or shelter 1. So that's when you're going to do the probability of both separately minus the probability of their overlap. So rabbits and shelter 1. The probability of rabbits is 28 over 270. Probability of shelter 1 is 71 over 270. Probability of them at the same time, the overlap, is 6 over 270. That gives you a final answer of 93 out of 270. The next one, you're talking about a cat or shelter 2. So take your totals and subtract the overlap. We have 150 over 270 plus 110 over 270 minus the 55 over 270. That's going to give you a probability of 205 out of 270. So keep in mind that you have to be really careful when you're reading and doing problems with two-way tables. You want to make sure your totals are actually there, and you want to make sure you actually read what they're asking you for. Are they asking you for a marginal frequency or a joint frequency? Do they want to know the probability of and or the probability of or, because or requires a few extra steps? So just read super carefully. And that's all for this video.